want to bring somebody else to join our conversation because I think it would be relevant to what she's been doing. But please welcome to the stage in my show, Priyanka Agarwal, who's the co-founder and CEO of HealthEx. Priyanka, thanks for joining us here today. Priyanka, meet Marshall. He's going to hang out. You don't mind sharing the stage a little bit with him, huh? Nice to see you. Thank you.
I promise I'll be quiet.
No, I mean, I just think that a lot of what Priyanka is doing, which I find, you know, again, part of the revolution, right? If you want to have a revolution, you got to have data, you got to know what you do. You know, there has to be accountability in this system, and you've got to figure out, you know, new ways to do things. And I sort of find that the real, like I've been monitoring stuff on precision medicine for years and years and years. I don't think we've been walking the walk of it. We've been talking the talk. So I think part of it is how do you begin doing it? And I think the real bold bet here is if you're not able to take all these macro tools, these huge things, and make them work at an individual level, then we're kind of missing what this is all about. And tell me where I'm wrong, Priyanka.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me.
No, great to have you.
Conversation, awesome day. Just briefly, so folks know a little bit about me. I'm a physician and internist, so cared for really sick folks in the hospital for 15 years at UCSF out in California. Subsequent to that, I was part of an incredible team at a biotech called Myocardia, so really kind of lived the rare disease world. We were part of a team that developed a therapy for a rare inherited cardiomyopathy.
I didn't even know that this is even going to be a better relationship than I thought.
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah. And you know, I would say both of those lived experiences as a physician caring for patients and then in the drug discovery world, I saw so much opportunity to empower patients with their own health data. So in the hospital, I'd be caring for folks in the ICU in the middle of the night. Somebody would arrive with little more than a photocopied discharge summary. You're waiting 1 to 2 weeks to get their biopsy results. They're waiting to start cancer therapy. So I think all of us as patients and caregivers have been in that situation.
So just give people a snapshot of HealthEx. My understanding is I haven't played. I mean, I will go on and get whatever you're doing, and you know, we'll see what it costs me. Maybe it's free, whatever. I don't know. Yeah. But I mean, you've created an Apple Wallet, right? Of my own health data, which I stupidly don't have, right? I'm you know, talking about health stuff, but I have no idea what my health data is. So thanks for shaming me in a way. So, you know, and indirectly shaming.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say, you know, those lived experiences as a physician and then on the drug discovery side, I thought there was a huge unlock waiting here for the consumer to really be driving their health journey, using their health data in interesting ways. And so what we've built at HealthEx is essentially the capability for any person to access and share their health records at the moments that matter.
Right.
And to your point, that is organized like an Apple Wallet for your health data. So the idea is you access your data once and then you never have to do it again. That data is kept up to date for you by HealthEx. You permission where you want to share it. You can turn off those connections at any point in time. And so today we work with just an amazing set of organizations. We work with some of the big AI teams. HealthEx is live today in Claude, in Copilot Health. We work with some amazing digital health teams like Whoop, 23andMe. We're working with some of the biggest health plans nationally, provider teams. And so the idea is that, you know, in 2026, we want the individual to be the connective tissue and to be the driver of their health, not institutions. And I would say, you know, if you look at the history of US healthcare, it has been so institution-centric, which, you know, I understand why as a physician, but in 2026, I think there's a lot of frustration in the way that all of us access our healthcare. There's so many access problems.
How are people, I don't know whether we're vibing with this. I was watching, I mean, one of your partners is 23andMe. And I remember when, was it Ann Wojcicki, the CEO was going through this. She ended up buying back her bankrupt company.
Yep.
But in the process of the company possibly being bought, the worry was in California that, you know, people's personal genetic information would somehow be available or abused, et cetera. So I had an account there and I deleted my account. So he said, delete
I did mine too.
Did you delete your account? Then she bought it back and I like her and I said, damn, I deleted my account, you know, because I sort of trusted her, but not others in the process. But you could feel that there was this palpable fear and anxiety that people had about their genetic data being out there. How are you are they trusting what you're doing in a way that was different than what was like in the
Absolutely.
23andMe world.
So, what's interesting is I came to this space because as a physician, I was personally shocked by the way that all of our de-identified data is bought and sold in a daily manner, and that's perfectly legal. And my thinking was, gosh, I think many patients, many of us would be fine with our data being used for good, particularly if we have a disease in our family that's very serious. But there was just no mechanism in place to ask patients, ask consumers, hey, how do you want to use your data? And so I think you really hit on a very important theme that HealthEx strives to deliver against, which is trust. I think in 2026, people are happy for their data to be used again in meaningful ways, but I think people want awareness, they want control, they want to know how their data is being used and by whom. And that, I think, trusted partner is where HealthEx really wants to sit with the individual.
Yeah, so the bridge with Marshall here is one that I think exists in a way where, I sort of feel, so I feel exactly like you do on the data, my data in particular. I am narcissistic about my data. But the thing I think is important is that if my data could help solve a rare disease challenge, I would like it to be in that mix. And so I don't know how the regime is set up.
Yeah.
What I will tell you is that 10 years ago, I found an incredible amount of unwillingness of large sort of cancer centers to share data with other cancer centers. And one would say, oh, they're trying to protect their patient. I thought they were protecting their commercial interests. And so one of the things, I don't know how it's evolved, is whether or not there's enough data out there, enough personal data, maybe disassociated data, that we're actually, Marshall, able to achieve some things with AI, like Iceland achieved by genetically coding all of its population, or are we still living in a balkanized data world that's going to inhibit your success?
I think it's still a balkanized world, and a lot of that has to do with some of the EHR systems, things like that don't really want to be too portable from that standpoint. What you're doing is absolutely spot on from that standpoint, where it's the old 90-10 rule. 90% of folks, if you ask them, are probably willing to share their data for research purposes, to help society, things like that. And people have kind of tested those waters, and it's probably much higher than 90. But there's always that 10%, and things get designed around that smaller group than they do around the bigger group, which creates a lot of roadblocks for pulling data, getting it across borders, so to speak. Even hospitals with the same EHR system can't really share data back and forth unless those are plugged and connected together. So the solution you have, which is you pull it out and you put it in the hands of the patients, really is the one that I think makes the most sense. For rare disease, is incredibly important, because let's say you go to an emergency room and you're in a state you don't live in and you've got a rare disease, and you walk in there and nobody knows what the heck you have. But if you've got something, you say, here it is. Here's what I've got. Here's my usual treatment plan. Here's my care team you can contact. That's incredible.
Priyanka, one of the things I'm interested in is once you get the data, I'm going to pretend to be me, and I have HealthEx, and I'm taking GLP-1 drugs, and I'm kind of looking for what the positive impacts are on my health profile over time.
Yeah.
One of the things I hate about the health profession is that I've got to go to a doctor or some kind of soothsayer to tell me how it may be improving different categories of my health and what a model of improvement would look like. It's gobbledygook to me. And I'm just wondering, are we moving far enough forward that as we are, say if I'm making progress with GLP-1, am I making progress on other dimensions that aren't just weight, but they are, what we were talking about, other potential, health challenges, and getting a picture and being informed by that HealthEx or by that agent that in fact, oh, you're making progress here, or oh, you're not here.
Absolutely.
Because, I'm in One Medical, and have that, I do this stuff, but I hate it. I really don't like, I'm not a very doctor-friendly kind of guy, despite my demeanor. And I just get all this data, and I don't know how to read it and whatever, and it kind of forces you to go back to why you went online and telehealth anyway, but they force you back into the brick and mortar system. So how is the interface on that front going?
Yeah, so I think you hit on a core theme, which is traditionally in healthcare, you as a patient have to go to One Medical. You have to go to the formal healthcare system. And I think many people are in your shoes where that may not be convenient for them, or maybe that's not where they're managing their everyday health. So a big part of the HealthEx model is we want to show up for people in the moments that matter wherever they're spending that time. So, maybe you're more likely to check your Whoop app every day and, look to see what your daily indicators of health are. And so one of the things we're doing is, we're powering the Whoop experience. So you could pull in your One Medical data into Whoop and understand through AI, hey, what do my labs actually mean?
Right.
And that's something that I hear a lot from patients. I talked to somebody recently, he's a stage 4 lung cancer patient. He goes to UCSF. He gets a huge list of labs every 3 weeks with his chemotherapy. He's been ingesting all of that data into Claude using HealthEx, and he says, gosh, for the first time, I actually understand what those labs mean. So I think that type of empowerment around taking down some of the asymmetry that exists in healthcare where, the doctor or the nurse knows what your health history means, but oftentimes for the patient, it's really confusing because you have all these scientific terms and labs. And so that type of information asymmetry, I think AI does a really nice job of. Now, AI isn't going to fully replace your doctor, nor are we advocating for that, but I do think that in terms of meeting people where they're at, making it convenient, providing them with information so they have greater understanding, these are all awesome things that AI can do. And I think our intent at HealthEx is we want those AI experiences to be personalized to you. So we don't want you to be getting generic information off the web, but if that AI experience is really informed by your personal health history, our intent is that that's going to be a safer, more effective experience.
Have you ever thought of a partnership with Uncommon Cures?
We'd love
should
to.
talk.
Yeah,
we
we
should.
should. I mean, we certainly are working with several kind of rare disease groups that are looking to do things like setting up a registry.
Yeah.
When I was at Myocardia, gosh, it was millions of dollars for a few thousand patients to stand up a registry.
Right.
With HealthEx, you ask the consumer to share their records, you can stand it up. And
Marshall?
We need to connect you with the NORD, National Organization for Rare Disorders I Am Rare program.
Yeah.
Because one of the things we're looking at now, the classic rare disease natural history is you fill out a paper form, you fill out all of these questions, and you miss the things you don't know. Whereas with an interactive system like you're promoting, you can actually start to find those things out. Back to your question a second ago, why isn't it moving faster? We are a litigious society, and there's always that, oh, what if it's wrong? And who's going to be responsible for that? Because it's going to be wrong. I mean,
Right.
so is your doctor, so is your nurse, so is almost anyone. But I think what I've seen, that's still kind of one of the choke points that a lot of these things have to travel through. I don't know if you found that true or not, but.
Yeah, I think a nice analogy for thinking about AI in medicine is really what's going on with self-driving cars.
Right.
And a lot of concerns initially, but as the wealth of data comes in, I think there's a lot of good to come from safety on the roads from AI. I had my older parents turn on self-driving on their Tesla in the last year after seeing all of that data. And so, I think it's still early days for the impact of AI in healthcare, but I think the hope is that it's going to make healthcare more consumer-centric, it's going to make it easier. And, I say this as a clinician, we don't want islands. We don't want people to be deciding their healthcare on their own with just AI, but I think what AI can do is make the patient more informed, make that first visit with a doctor more informed if a patient is coming in with their health records with a clear set of questions to ask. And so
Cool what you're doing.
Yeah.
Are you going to have a drink with me at 5?
absolutely.
Great. Round of applause for Priyanka. Don't leave. I mean, I'm very pleased. Marshall, you're going to miss out.
I know.
Let's give a big round of applause to Marshall Summer, CEO of Uncommon Cures. Thank you, my friend.
Appreciate it.
Really appreciate you coming. Priyanka, will you
Sure.
stick with us here for a little bit? As I have another data diva coming up. Please invite to the stage with me Chris Curry is Clinical Director of Women's Health at Aura. Really great. You might as keeping Priyanka up here. I think it's kind of fun. It's on topic. Thanks for you. You've been here for a while, right? I've seen you kind of lurking around here.
I've been lurking.
And I said, you're absorbing everything. So we've been having a day on changing the game, and I think one of the issues we're interested in is every corner and quadrant of health and how we shake it up. You're very focused on women's health, which frankly, until I had read this, I had not really appreciated how kind of understudied, left behind, not part of the full package, the broad women's health spectrum is, which surprises me. Why is that?
Why are you surprised, or why does it happen?
Why have we allowed a healthcare system to evolve that is dismissing half the population?
Yeah. So to start with definitions, right? Women's health is the health of half the humans on the planet.
Right.
So it's shocking.
It is shocking.
We don't understand the foundational and fundamental biology of half the bodies in this room. Some of that is systemic. Some of that is rules and regulations that are not worth relitigating right now. So some of it is just part of the systemic research environment. I think the other part is there's an acknowledgement by researchers that female biology is complex. And in science, you want to control all the little aspects of your study. And so you don't want this background fluctuating biology making your results look a little bit messy. So that makes it easier or safer to just disregard that physiology. So that's what's happened for years is, it's too messy, it's too hard to interpret. Let's just use male physiology. So in one side we say the female is too complex, let's use male as the baseline. And then somehow we also allow the next sentence, which is, but then we can use the male physiology to be the standard for the female. So it's like a little nonsensical.
I mean, it is nonsensical. I'm just really totally surprised. So we all know the Aura ring, but hold up the ring. You know, everybody this is Aura of the Aura. And yeah, I see somebody in the front. I see people. There they go. They're Aura rings going up. And I guess my question to you have you solved that challenge with the Aura ring? Is it gender bending?
I mean, that's why I took a job there, right?
What's that?
That's why I took a job there, right?
Yeah.
The forward and public commitment that Aura has to not just right that historical wrong, that's a little bit too lamenting of the past, but to create an environment in which it is obvious that we should be studying sex-based differences in biology, sex-based differences in health and disease. That is the foundation of building the future, and so I think that's how we want to show up.
I mean, I want to go further than that divide. I would like to go to a much more individual level. I found very compelling what someone was sharing about each one of us kind of carries a whole different tapestry of medical realities in ourselves, and it's just kind of crappy that we don't finally get personalized medicine that's personalized with gender, race, socioeconomic dimensions and whatnot. Then we're failing, right? So that's kind of part of what excites me about this discussion. So I like you there. But you're also in the area that I'm really intrigued with, which is wearables. Now, I'm bad with wearables, but I'm going to get into it. And I've been on and off with Jawbone.
We can help you.
I mean, it's the charging things, that ends up being a problem. But I want to be there. But people have convinced me that our ability to track my iPhone tracking so much about just being on my body or near me or the steps I take is changing that. And I assume, as Priyanka, this or whatever, that part of this is going to feed into HealthEx, or it can, right? So I'm interested in the interface, this new ecosystem of wearables, gadgets, collecting data, feeding it into health awareness and agency. And I want you to tell us where that's going.
Yeah. I'll come back to your first complaint, though, that you started it. But that lots of people buy wearables and then they go in a drawer.
Yeah.
And the best wearable is the wearable you wear.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time at a prior company working on watch-based wearables and hadn't really appreciated the difference in form factor when it's a ring. In that people wear a device 23 and a half hours a day. And so the quality of data, the longitudinal nature of data, the way that it's just sort of in the background as a data collection as compared to I gotta charge it every night, I think is part of that foundation that will allow us to be successful in women's health and in research. But I think to sort of the point about multi-layering of data before, you think about EHR data, super rich, lots of AI companies are appropriately looking at it to define signal and to learn. But EHR data is based on what I write in the chart, what you write in the chart. So there's some bias that is inherently what's in the chart. And then someone has to bounce off the healthcare system in the first place for that data to exist. So EHR is important, but it's not everything. And I think wearables are a really nice interstitial to that because they're there every day. So those punctate moments with your physician have this interstitial layer of what you are doing every single day as the N of one that you are. And then it reintegrates in an ideal setting through the lens of AI and interpretation, through the brain and the heart of a physician, back into a storytelling for one patient.
So you're using AI methodologies to create a consistency of data that can then be turned back into human interpretation.
Yeah, we have an interesting partnership that we announced probably hours ago at this point with Counsel, which is a telehealth AI-based platform where we're sort of testing the hypothesis that if our members consent and agree to share their data, including their EHR data, which they can now bring in, they can have a chat with AI, and we know that sort of back and forth and how far it gets you. But when it gets to the level where there should be a doctor in the loop, we offer to pull a doctor in the loop. So trying to build out that full circuit of, I'm curious about my body, I'm learning about my body, I can ask some questions of AI, AI gets me so far, but now this is like really a clinical question. And then a physician comes into the chat and is able to do that next layer, which may be prescribing or referring or just another depth of conversation.
How are you building in wearables?
Yeah, so I think it's this notion of having a really rich understanding of your entire 360 health. So it's your EHR records, it's your wearable data, it's your genomic data, it's your health plan data. And I think going back to your earlier point about, hey, why are people engaging in all of this in 2026? I think we have so much agency in our lives today. You know, we can pick any TV show we want to watch at any time. You can bank in really interesting ways. I think people want that same control in their healthcare experience as well. And so I think you are feeling a lot of desire for people to take control of their health, to think not just about what's wrong with them today, but also about how to stay healthier for longer, how to be there for children or grandchildren. And so there is this hunger that I think all of us have in living our best, healthiest life. And wearables give us that control. I think efforts like HealthEx are meant to give people that control. But I think you're seeing this burgeoning in consumer-driven healthcare writ large that I think is really exciting. Having been in this space for 20 years now, you have services like Function and Prenuvo. And, you know, I think if you talk to the medical establishment, there's pros and cons to all of this, right? But I think what's undeniable is that desire for people to have control. And what we in healthcare in Washington need to think about is how to respond to that desire in a really meaningful way and not just say, hey, you can't do this, which I think historically has been some of the answer.
Yeah, I think the gatekeeping of physicians where we're like, you can only get objective data if you come see us.
Exactly.
Right.
It's like, that's so going away. It's all the patient's data, and we have the privilege of looking at it as a company or as a physician.
Right. I don't know what you're typing so much. I'm really impressed. So I love that you're doing it. I don't know who you're doing it for. But no. I go back. You have an Oura ring. I do. Yeah, so I was thrilled with that. You put your finger with the first one I saw. So how's it going for you, and how do you use your data from that?
A lot of, oh, that's really loud. I mainly use it to track the different zones that I enter when I do cardio. I use every feature. I don't think that exactly just like one stands out, but I do really appreciate the women exclusive features, which is a reason why I bought it versus wearing like an Apple Watch or something, which I'm not really familiar with what the Apple Watch does offer, but you know, when you brought up like the charging aspect, it's actually so funny because the battery lasts so long. I think I charge it for like an hour and it lasts days.
Guess I have to get one.
So I might call you out on that one.
Can guys get them?
Yes.
Yes.
Look,
That's the other half of
all
the planet.
questions are fair, right? So,
It's
you know.
the other half of the planet,
What's
right?
that? No, I have friends. I thought their Oura rings. Look, I'm a little bit behind on the whole wearable thing because look, I'm married. Keep losing my wedding ring.
okay, it's okay.
So, You know, it is just, I'm going to get over it. I'm going to get an Oura ring and I'm going to learn.
I can tell you, my husband wears an Oura ring as his wedding ring, so it's 2 for 1.
That may be the answer that
Right?
I need. So, but I wanted to come to you and I wanted to thank you because I think it's, great. I know there are other people out here that did this, and I want to thank both Chris Curry, Clinical Director of Women's Health at Oura. What a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for sharing with us what I think is really important too, which I had not realized was the gender disparities in the kind of health ecosystem, which ought to be part of this as well. And Priyanka Agarwal, co-founder and CEO of HealthEx. Thank you both very much for joining us.